In 1266, Kublai Khan sent emissaries to Japan, demanding Japan to be a vassal state and to pay tribute under a threat of conflict. As the emissaries repeatedly sent letters to Japan to make demands, all of them returned empty-handed. In 6 years, none of the 5 letters received a reply. The great Khans of the Mongol Empire did not tolerate disrespect from its neighbors. In reply, Kublai Khan demanded to strike Japan on 1272. However, his counselors advised him to take his time. This was because 300 to 600 warships took time to build. On 1274, 40,000 soldiers prepared to set sail for the invasion of Japan. 500 to 900 warships were estimated to have been made for this invasion. On November 26th, the Mongols entered Hakata Bay. Due to inadequate preparations, the disorganized shogunate soldiers on the scene allowed them to land without difficulty. In the battle that followed, the samurai were at a disadvantage. The Kamakura samurai hoped to engage on one-on-one horseback. However, the Mongols were unaware of the samurai culture of one-on-one combat. As samurai approached the enemy to make individual challenges, they were immediately surrounded and shot down by arrows. In addition to the form of battle, the Mongol soldiers' short bows had greater range and were laced with poison, landing fatal hits to the Japanese swordsmen. With the clamor of gongs, the Mongols deployed explosive projectiles. Gunpowder was unknown to Japan. Black shells that exploded mid-air released fire and smoke, further creating chaos on the samurai. With the horses terrified and Japan's warriors' amazement of the foreign weapon, the shogunate had no choice but to retreat. After the fight ended, the Mongols decided to spend the night on their ships. Unbeknownst to the Japanese defenders, the Korean and Chinese sailors were persuading the Mongol generals to let them weigh anchor and head further out to sea. They worried that the high waves and strong winds would damage their ships in Hakata Bay. The Mongol generals refused to heed the sailors' advice, sailing out in open waters facing the strength of an open typhoon. 2 days later, the 13,000 of the Mongol forces drowned and a third of their warships sank on the bottom of the ocean. The Mongols retreated with battered ships, and Japan was spared of the Great Khan's domination. In the capital Dadu, modern-day Beijing, Kublai Khan lamented the misfortune of his fleet. Kublai Khan once again sent a 6-man delegation ordering the Emperor of Japan to travel to Dadu and kowtow him. The Japanese responded by beheading all of them, breaking the Mongol law. Already expecting a second invasion, the leaders of Kyushu amassed available warriors and weaponry. Kyushu's landowning class was given the task of building a defensive wall around Hakata Bay, 5 to 15 feet high and 25 miles long. After 5 years, construction was finished. Meanwhile, Kublai Khan established a new government division called the Ministry for Conquering Japan. The ministry devised a 2-pronged attack for the following spring. Kublai Khan was determined to crush the defiant Japanese once and for all. He believed that his defeat 7 years ago had simply been bad luck due to the weather. In the spring of 1281, the Japanese got word that a second Mongol invasion was coming their way. The waiting samurai sharpened their swords and prayed to the Shinto god of war. The Mongols came with a massive force of 140,000, comprising of 40,000 Korean, Chinese and Mongol troops from Mason, while an even larger force of 100,000 sailed from southern China in 3,500 ships. In total, Kublai sent 4,400 warships to conquer Japan. The Korean fleet reached Hakata Bay on June 23, 1281, but the ships from China were nowhere to be seen. The smaller division of the Mongol army was unable to breach the Japanese defensive wall, so a stationary battle evolved. The samurai proved to be a tough opponent as they weakened Mongol ships by sailing into the night and setting fire to ships. This constant nighttime raids demoralized Mongol conscripts. A stalemate between the two opposing forces lasted for 50 days, as the Korean fleet waited for the Chinese reinforcements. On August 12, the Mongols' main fleet landed to the west of Hakata Bay. Now faced with a force more than 3 times as large as their own, the samurai were in serious danger of being overrun and slaughtered. With odds against them and little hope of survival, the Japanese fought with desperate bravery. As the Mongol onslaught continued and coming extermination of Japan, a miraculous event took place. On August 15, 1281, a second typhoon roared ashore at Kyushu. Out of all the Khan's 4,400 ships, a few hundred rode out of the towering waves and vicious winds. Almost all of the Mongol forces drowned, and those few thousand who were able to survive were slaughtered by the samurai. A few were able to escape to tell the tale at Dadu. The Japanese believed that their gods had sent the storm to save them from the Mongols. They called the two storms kamikaze, or divine winds. Kublai Khan seemed to agree that Japan was protected by supernatural forces, thus abandoning the idea of conquering the island nation.